So what are gem hearts in the Stormlight Archive? Where do they come from and how do we get them? Now, Rachel has a really cool theory on why they're so important. However, we need to know what they are and where they come from before we can dive into that. Now, the basic information that you can just get from the text is that gem hearts are the hearts of really large creatures that are native to Roshar, and they oftentimes gather to harvest them. We know the Alethi came to the Shattered Plains for the war that's ongoing. However, they plan to stay there because of the gem hearts that can be harvested from the great shells that live there. And the great shells that live elsewhere, they have previously hunted and harvested. And it's a form of making enough food for this planet and other resources due to soul casting being connected to the types of gem hearts. And because of that, they're such a precious resource that they're so sought after on Roshar. But where do they come from in the first place? So thankfully, some fans have been smart enough to specifically ask Brandon, where do gemstones come from? He talks about how they are mostly coming from gem hearts, but it has to do with the fact that they are drinking the creme, and the creme solidifies in the bodies of the creatures native to Roshar in a gem heart. Now, the size of the creature has a great effect on whether it's going to have a really large gem heart or a very small one. Even axe hounds have gem hearts, but they're just so small that they're not significant in the greater economy of Roshar. Now, specifically, we've asked, where do gem hearts come from? They grow naturally just like your fingernails grow. Where do they get the resources? The rain that falls on Roshar is hard water full of creme that crystallizes. If you drink that water, it gives you the nutrients that you need to make gem hearts. Now, is every body capable of turning the creme that comes from the storms on Roshar, which are already invested with stormlight? Is every body capable of turning that into a gem heart? I would posit that it's possible. Even the singers have gem hearts. They are just so small because the singers are small, and it's basically the larger the creature, the larger heart they're going to have, so the larger gem heart they're going to end up having. The singers' gem hearts are not particularly useful, and they're hidden and look like bone, so you can't even really tell what it is. And remember, the Alethi do not drink the creme. They specifically mentioned several times throughout the series that the water is separated before they drink it after the storms. They let the creme settle to the bottom and then they drink the rest of it, which would explain why they don't seem to be able to bond with Spren and why they don't have gem hearts that they would notice in their own dead. But Melissa, they have mining for gem hearts. How does that happen? Well, in this world, assuming that the gem hearts are essentially found with the dead bones of the deceased, why, yes, they would be able to mine them over time. As Brandon says here, technically things would build up over time and gather bodies and cover them, and then you would be able to later mine that as if it's a fossil deposit. I don't know how many of you have actually been to Utah, but on the Utah-Colorado border, there's actually Dinosaur National Park, and there's a huge fossil deposit. That's a desk for visitors. This is a huge wall of fossil deposits that were slowly covered up with sediment over time to cover the fossils, and they just naturally gathered in that area. They believe that it happened due to watering holes being nearby, but also Utah's full of slot canyons, and the force of storms and water raging and flash floods would push deceased bodies together so that they would end up with these huge fossil deposits, which is what my theory is that Brandon pulled from to consider that you could, in theory, mine gem hearts on Roshar, because they would essentially be fossil deposits that gather in one area due to the high storms, which is like we see when Bridge 4 goes down into the slot canyons. So what are the gem hearts? They are essentially deposits of the creme from the high storms being processed by the bodies of the creatures on Roshar, gathering into one thing inside their body and forming a gem heart. Pretty much, it seems like every creature natural to Roshar would have a gem heart, and then they take these from the dead bodies of creatures or fossil deposits from creatures, and they break them up and they put them into gemstones in glass and use the pieces of creatures' hearts as currency on their planet. I'm going to be totally honest. That was a really uncomfortable realization for me that the pretty little spheres that they're walking around with, glowing with stormlight, are chunks of organs from dead bodies. But that is what gem hearts are. That's how they're created. That's where they come from. And I did this deep dive because Rachel has a really cool theory about gemstones and what they're going to be for the Cosmere going forward. And she is going to post that tomorrow. Come back for that next video. It's really cool and it's really important going into Stormlight Archive 5.